You've seen it, right? Maybe on the subway, at a park, or just scrolling through your feed. Some kind of conflict breaks out, and for a second, everyone just freezes. A crowd forms, but nobody makes a move. And that one big question just hangs in the air. What do I do?
So let's really get into this, because there's this powerful story we all tell ourselves about situations like that. A story that says, in a crowd, people just stand by and do nothing. But we're going to see if that story actually holds up.
Just think about it for a second, honestly. It's so easy to say, oh, I'd be the hero, I'd jump right in. But, well, decades of psychology have been built on the idea that most of us, when it comes right down to it, probably wouldn't. And this whole idea has a name. I'm sure you've heard of it, the Bystander Effect. It's like one of the most famous concepts in all of social psychology. And honestly, it paints a kind of grim picture of us as people.
The basic idea is really simple. The more people who are around, the less likely it is that any one of them will step up and help. We figure someone else will do it, right? Or maybe we look around, see nobody else is freaking out, and think, maybe this isn't a big deal. It's become our go-to assumption for how we act in an emergency. But what happens when that emergency isn't on the street, but on our screens?
Because if the bystander effect is a problem in the real world, whew boy, it gets supercharged online. Especially when we're talking about something like cyberbullying.
And get this, the scale of the problem is just staggering. Research from 2019 found that in pretty much any given cyberbullying incident, a whopping 75% of the people involved are bystanders. They're not the bully, they're not the victim, they are the audience. They are by far the biggest group in the room.
And this chart really breaks down why it's so much trickier online. With traditional bullying, you can literally see the harm happening. But online, the audience can be massive, the harm is often invisible, the bully could be totally anonymous, and there's no escape for the victim. They can't just go home and get away from it. That digital distance makes it so much easier to just do nothing.
But this is where that old, simple story starts to fall apart. Is a bystander really just one thing? Someone who just sits there and watches? Well, new research shows it's way more complicated than that. It turns out a bystander isn't just one role. There are at least 4 different types.
First up, you've got the assistant. This person is not passive at all. They see what's happening and they jump right in to help the bully, piling on with their own attacks. Then you have the reinforcer. Now, they might not type a single nasty comment themselves, but their likes, their shares, their laughing emojis, all of that adds fuel to the fire. They're basically giving the bully a virtual high five and telling them to keep going.
And here's the one we all think of, right? The outsider. This is the classic bystander. They see everything, they know exactly what's going on, and they make a clear choice to just stay out of it, to just keep scrolling.
And finally, and this is so important, we have the defender. This is the person who steps in. They might DM the victim with a supportive message, report the bully, or even confront them directly in the comments. So how do these roles actually break down in the wild? Well, a 2015 study gives us a pretty good idea. And yeah, okay, most people, over 63%, are outsiders. But look at that second number. A full 25%, that's 1 in 4 people, are defenders. They actively choose to help. All of a sudden, that idea that no one does anything just doesn't seem right, does it? So that's the big question, isn't it? What's the difference between a defender and an outsider? What makes someone step up while someone else keeps scrolling? Well, it really comes down to why we help people in the first place.
So when we do help, are we doing it for them, or are we secretly doing it for us? Like, are we trying to make them feel better or just make ourselves feel better? Psychologists basically have 2 main theories about this.
So on one hand, you've got egoistic motivation. This is when we help someone mostly to get rid of our own bad feelings. Seeing them suffer makes us feel distressed or sad, so helping them is a way to make ourselves feel better. On the other hand, there's altruistic motivation. This is when we're driven by pure empathy. We genuinely feel for the victim, and our main goal is simply to end their suffering, even if it's uncomfortable for us. And the research is pretty clear on what pushes us toward becoming a defender. People with higher empathy are way more likely to help. That makes sense. So are people who've been victims themselves in the past. They get it. Another huge factor is having low moral disengagement, which is just a fancy way of saying you're less likely to make excuses for doing nothing. And finally, and this one is crucial, it's believing that your actions can actually make a difference. So we know that even online, where it is so easy to do nothing, a good chunk of us, a quarter of us, still step up to defend someone. But remember, this whole bystander effect theory, it wasn't born from studying internet comments. It came from studying real-world emergencies.
So what happens when you take away the screen? When you strip away the anonymity and the digital distance and you put people face to face with a real conflict? Well, the answer is probably not what you think.
In 2020, researchers did the biggest study of its kind, ever. They analyzed thousands of hours of real CCTV footage from 3 different countries to see what people actually do. And what they found completely turns the classic bystander effect on its head. Get this, in 9 out of 10 public conflicts, at least one bystander did something to help.
Yeah, over 90% of the time, someone helps. Intervention, it turns out, is the norm. It is not the exception. That old fear we all have, that if we're in trouble in a crowd, we'll be left all alone, it's largely a myth. It seems we are far, far more likely to help each other than we've been led to believe. Which brings us right back to the digital world, a place where the rules feel different and inaction is just a thumb swipe away. We now know that in the real world, our human instinct, our default setting, is to help. So the real question is, when you're the bystander behind the screen, looking at that sea of outsiders and reinforcers, which role will you choose to play?